Here we go.
It says we're streaming live on Facebook, so I'm assuming we are.
Yes, yes, it does. Well, hey, everybody. It's 3 p.m. and it's time for dinner with Nanny Bubby. Welcome, everybody here, and welcome with me, Harry Feigold, who is known as @Feigelman on Instagram and @Harry Feigold on Facebook. Sorry, it disappeared. So it always does that. Like we're there, then we're gone. But luckily I used to scream, oh no, Russell, help me, I'm gone. But I learned finally just how to get it back. So welcome to everybody. I'm so excited to talk to Harry. He has got poems for Mother's Day, which I'm very proud to tell you, and some very interesting and inspiring stories. As all of you know, I love to have inspiring stories here on Thursdays to talk to all of us about how people have come through highs and lows in their life and reinvented themselves at times in their life when they go into retirement, at times in their life when things have changed or when they've had loss. And I think it inspires all of us to be stronger and to step forward in our lives, especially if we have fear of doing so. And Harry is definitely one of those people. He's got some great inspiring stories. And so we're going to get started as soon as I locate us live, because I find out how many people are here. They start all coming in. There we go. And I'll get feedback in just a minute. But there we go. And let me turn that down, and I'm going to share now. And Lucy is here, my mother is here. And so I welcome all of you to my meeting with Harry Feigold. And full disclosure, Harry and I are cousins. Here is the interesting thing about Harry and I being cousins. We actually don't know how. We were just talking about it, exactly how we were related, and we can't actually figure it out. Somebody from his side married somebody on my side, who then married somebody on another side, and here we are. I've known Harry since he was born. I remember seeing him for the first time in his bassinet at the Boulevard Apartments, right?
Wow. Yeah.
That's where we were born. And I was just a young teenager. I think I was just starting to drive, actually, because that's how I ended up there by myself to chat with your mom. So Harry Feigold, how's life with you these days?
Life is good. And, you know, if you saw me when I was in my bassinet and you were driving, somehow you stopped aging and I just kept getting older. I don't understand how that happened.
That's sweet. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So Harry recently retired after 25 years on the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, which is a very honorable place to serve. And you are definitely have put your life in service to your community, not only with Metro, but so many other things that you have done. And we just had a conversation about how many police forces across the country are having, what do you call it, when they try to get people in, what is it called? Recruiting,
yeah.
Yes, they're starting to recruit. And unfortunately, these classes, these recruitment classes right now are very low. They're not filled. Before, you used to have to, wait to get in, and now they're maybe a quarter or half full. When you began, and I speak to this because there might be someone young who's watching who thought they always wanted to be on the police force, and in the times that we're on right now, actually maybe has fear about doing so. So when you began, what was it in your heart that attracted you to take on police work in your life?
Well, when I first started out with my education, I was pushing towards criminal justice background. I was probably going to go towards the law school direction. I was thinking of becoming a lawyer. That was one of my thoughts. I was interested in the police business, so I was going to do something in the criminal justice world, but I thought I was going to be a lawyer. So that's what I was going to school for. And then I met these guys that worked for Metro, and they took me on some ride-alongs, and I realized from that experience that I couldn't have a more direct effect than by being a police officer. It just, the decision was made, and I just went for it, and that's what I did. I think I was in my sophomore year or my junior year at UNLV when I came up with that new goal.
Did you finish the degree?
I did. I got my degree in criminal justice, and then I worked for a while, and then I tested for the department, and then there was a hiring freeze, so I had to wait. And I was waiting. While I was waiting, I was working at the Treasure Island as a blackjack dealer. And I
Oh,
had decided that if I didn't get the job at Metro, if it didn't come through, that I was going to stay in gaming. I really liked gaming. It was cool. I liked the people. I liked the business. And I thought there was a lot of potential for growth there. But I hadn't really tasted the service world. I'd been a bartender. I'd been done a lot of things, but I didn't know the power in sacrificing for others really at that point. And then when I became a police officer, I began to realize that it really is more than just a career. It is a commitment to a greater good. And I think that right now it's a difficult time. There's been many times when police are in difficult moments of time. It happens when there's watershed moments in history. The police have a difficult job to do, as we know, and I'm not making excuses for any kind of ill behavior because that's not what we're talking about. The job itself is difficult. It's complicated and complex, and it requires a variety of skills. It may not have required a lot of skills back in the 1800s, but it does now. You have to be able to wear a lot of hats to do the job efficiently and to protect the rights of the people that you serve. It's very complicated. And the people that do the job are typically not that complicated though. They're not driven that way. They just want to help. And there's a lot that has to be understood before you can strap on a weapon that can take someone's life and go out into the world and try to do the right thing day in and day out under the pressures of people attacking you and people being high or drunk or people being mentally ill and trying to navigate all that water. And at the end of the day, not hurting anybody, because there's no goal to hurt anybody. There's only a goal to help people. The hurting comes as a side product of the job. And it's unfortunate. And people think that cops hire on just to go out there and kick ass and take names. And that's some nice Hollywood drama, but that is not the reality of police work. The reality of police work is it's a grind like everything else, but it's a very dangerous grind. It has unusual circumstances that most people don't have to deal with in their day-to-day life. And yes, that's what you get paid for, to be a police officer. You fill that void that other people sure don't want that job. I don't want to deal with that stuff. So you go deal with it. That's what we pay you for. So we would go deal with it.
and when you would come home from that, were you married at the time that you joined the police force, or were you married after you were in?
I was married and divorced and married again.
Oh, how did I miss that part?
Well, I was married for a while. And as often happens, we joke around in the business that you're not even a police officer till you've had at least one divorce and one angry ex-wife or an angry ex-husband. We laugh about that, but the truth is the job puts a heavy strain on relationships. And it's something that people need to go into with their eyes open, especially if they're a couple already, because I met my wife now while I was already a police officer. She knew what she was getting into. And even though she couldn't believe she was dating a police officer, she did. And we've been married for 23 years, and she's the love of my life. And absolutely, I could not be successful without her. She is half of that partnership. And it is extremely important to have that kind of support at home, because the job itself it's difficult. And in the times right now, you talked about young people that are thinking about careers in law enforcement and things like that. And what they're facing is a lot of people saying they hate the police and the police are corrupt and the police are evil. And it's a very difficult thing to hear, being a police officer, knowing that I'm none of those things. Okay. But I know that there are problems. There are systemic problems. There are problems in policy. There are problems in training. There are problems across the board. It is a complex and difficult assignment. It is constantly being I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Finish your sentence. I just wanted to.
It's constantly being redesigned to match what the community is asking for. And that is tough to do. You constantly try to match what the community and culture wants. There was a time when the police served different regimes, different politics or whatever throughout history. People like to go back and say, well, the police were based in this and based in that. I'm like, no, it's an evolving thing always. And I think that the goal of most police officers is to have a place where their families can be safe in. That's all they want. They want a place where your family, my family, their family, and all of our families can feel safe. They can walk down the street and not have to look over their shoulder about somebody trying to hurt them or do something. And most people are not that way. We don't have to live in fear looking over our shoulders, but we want to be able to walk without fear. That is what we want to do. Absence of fear. When the police start becoming part of the fear, then it's a problem. And it has to be worked out.
Because you're afraid to call that 911 if you need to. I want to welcome Arlene Wiesner, who is here as well. And I did want to ask you, did you have a difficult time walking in the door after your shift and shaking it off? What was that like for you?
Well, I mean, it's really hard because most people's understanding of police work is gained from watching television, watching cops on TV, or watching the first 48, or watching Hollywood drama about it. So they don't really have a clear idea of what that grind is like. With the military, it's quite different because you have a mission-based, basically rules of engagement. It's very different, but people compare the two a lot because they're both service-oriented and they both involve the potential for violence. So but they're very different. The military and the police are very different. And unfortunately, police have been trained like the military for a long time because that's the only real avenue that they had. And that training of learning how to use tactics, learning how to do small platoon movements, all that stuff's really important for your survival. But it doesn't tell you how to talk to the old guy that's not won't get out of his car at the intersection. It doesn't deal with that problem. And those are the problems that you deal with day to day that are the grind.
Say that if you really, more than anything, you have to have really good people skills. In other words, the old guy that won't get out of his car in the middle of an intersection, you have to look him in the eye and say, sir, I'm really here to help you. And I want you to trust me. And I promise you, I'm going to get you out of this intersection, but I'm afraid you're going to get hurt. And so if you can trust me enough to get out of your car so I can help you move it, then we're both going to be happy.
Right. And that sounds good on paper. I always tell people, if you want to know what it's like to be a cop, get your biggest, most dangerous friend that you have and get him drunk, and then tell him he's not allowed to move from the spot that he's in, and you have to move him from the spot he's in to somewhere else without hurting him. I go, that's police work all day long. You're moving somebody from point A to point B without hurting them, and you have to do it. You cannot walk away. You cannot go simply, hey, I'm going to leave you in the intersection. There are times when you should probably walk away and leave them in the intersection because then it escalates into something it shouldn't be.
Right.
The truth of the matter is it's a dangerous and difficult task. Oftentimes there are no rules or understanding to how do you talk to somebody into doing something that doesn't want to do it. Right. And if they don't trust you already, that's a big problem. If they already have a lack of trust. And that is what people that are testing for the police department right now, to me, they have a special challenge right now. To me, this is a good time to become a police officer. This may sound crazy or counterintuitive.
Oh, it's like investing in the stock market when it's down, right?
It is. And I think
buy on bad news, sell on good.
I don't think that the idea of people standing up for the safety of other people is going to go away. But I think that the idea about policing and the way it's done may go through some significant change. Mm-hmm. And for me, if you're young and you're just starting out in the business, and you want to be a law enforcement officer, you have a calling inside of you that says you want to help people, and this is the type of help you think you can provide, I think it's an opportunity right now.
And is that what it is? Is it a calling inside you that says, I want to help people?
Yes, and it's a way to help.
How you would define it? There was a calling inside you that said, hey, I can do this. I can help people.
I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. And that's the thing, is some people aren't afraid to go towards these situations. Right. But they also, and it's that combined with, kind of a general nosiness about the world. I'm nosy about the world. I want to know what's going on, and I want to help if I can. And it's like that need inside of you. And so if somebody is dealing with that and they want to help and they want to they should not be a police officer just because it's politically unsavory right now. And because it's difficult, and because it's always difficult. It's always hard to be a police officer. It always has been. It's not new that people don't like the police. People have never really liked the police all that much. I didn't go in the job. I like to be liked. I'm a human being. I don't like anybody hating me, especially people that don't know me and have already chosen what they believe. But I figure I have to live my life the way I live it, and we'll let the chips fall where they may, because I know the quality of human being that I am, and I know what I try to do with the time that I have, and it is positive. So if you get to know me, you're going to find out, hey, he's not trying to do anything to upset me. He's trying to help me. He's trying to lift me up. And that's what I try to do in my life.
Well, I want to ask you this. I do not want you to answer the question, what was the worst thing you ever saw when you were on the force? Because we don't want to go there. But what I would like to know is, what was the most inspiring thing you ever saw when you were on the force?
God, I saw people doing things for other people all the time, like you wouldn't believe, like going out of their way to help people they didn't even know. The job of the police officer, that's your job. That is your job, to go help people. You don't get to pick who you help either. That's another mistake that a lot of people made in their minds, that suddenly they thought, oh, I'm only supposed to help these people. No. You're the guardian of everybody. No one man, no one person, no one idea other than the Constitution of the United States gets to rule your day. That's it. So you have to serve everyone. It's not like the military where you pick sides either. You don't get to. Good and evil. No, you have to protect a suspect just as much as you protect a civilian.
Not the truth. I mean, it's how I felt. I know when Harmony was a public defender, her job was to protect the rights, the constitutional rights of the suspect,
Yes.
accused, whether she knew in her heart or not that they were guilty or not, they still had inalienable rights in front of Lady Liberty. And her job was to make sure that, guilty or not, their rights were being upheld. And that's a hard one. Like,
listen, how we treat kings and merchants and people of power and wealth and grace, how we treat those people is important. But how we treat the downtrodden and
right.
the impoverished and the sick and the unwell and the people that are struggling is really a reflection of who we are as humans.
As a society, exactly.
And how we treat those folks is as important, if not more important, than all the tapestry, which seems to be a lot of what we do these days is optics. A lot of what we try to accomplish is done for optical reasons rather than matters of the heart.
Well, I want to tell you about that tapestry. Let's talk about an Iranian tapestry, if you will. I want to say hello to Heather, who is now here watching, and Teresa Anderson is here. So Heather, as in Heather, my sister, you know that, okay. So you take a tapestry and you look at it, and the beautiful art on this side looks, unfettered. It's just perfect. But when you take that tapestry and turn it around, that's where all the little knots are. That's where all the little threads are torn and tied and knotted, and it's a mess back there.
Right.
It's a mess back there. And I think that as humans, what we work to do is to take the beautiful outside of this tapestry and our society that looks so perfect, and yet when we turn it over, we want to see it looking as good on that opposite side as it does on this side.
And that's a noble goal. And I say this, nobility is why you become a police officer. It's a noble calling. And the reason that it's noble is that you don't get to pick who you protect. That is why it is noble. It is not noble because you're protecting people. It's because you don't get to pick who you protect, and you have to protect all. And I try to drive this home. That is what police work is. It is being a guardian for everyone. Not just these folks, not just those folks, not just that person or those people. It is about all of us. And I think that going forward in the police business, if I was to have a crystal ball, which, I'd probably be really wealthy if I did, but I don't have one. But I'm guessing
you and Mark,
the next decade is going to be very challenging, as was the decade following the 60s, as was the decade following the 70s, as was Rodney King created a very difficult time for policing. It's when police are forced to look inward at their history and what they're doing out there. And are they doing everything a perfect way? And of course, there's a lot to it. It's very complex. So police often get their backs up thinking you don't understand. So you're saying this stuff, you're attacking us. And my thing is, look, that's part of what you have to bear as a police officer too. It's part of the deal. You have to bear the criticism, and people are never going to like what you're doing because it's something that needs to be constantly reevaluated. It involves people's freedom in their lives.
Yeah.
It has to be of significant and sacred importance. It has to be examined completely. And it is difficult and very difficult at times and almost impossible at times. Okay. However, it's something that has to be done. And I hope that there's young people out there with idealistic minds, with ideologies that are all encompassing and diverse, that want to be police officers, because that will be what fixes a lot of the issues that have kind of just lingered around. Because it's not as, you can argue that, the whole business is, I don't buy that shit for 1 second, that the whole business is bad. Okay, I just don't. There's too many good people involved. Do I think there could be improvement? Greatly, yes, always. And especially, they're talking about don't make a national police department. Just have police departments adhere to a national philosophy or standard that is about putting all of the citizens of the United States very first in line for being treated as equally and fairly as possible. And then everyone else who's not a citizen of the United States, we also give them fair treatment as well.
They're citizens, they're human beings.
They're human beings. And so we don't get to discount anyone.
No.
And then people that are criminals and suspects, we deal with them with professional equality as well. And I'm going to tell you, I put a lot of really bad people in prison, and where they belong. And I didn't do it because it was a personal attack on them. It's because they made choices in our society that mean they could not live among us. They were terrible to live among us. They would take and hurt people around them. And so they don't belong with us right now. They need to go somewhere else. Now, whether that rehabilitates them or not, we can argue that all day, but the police don't make those rules either. They're just there. At the end of the day, the police come in to move that guy or gal from right there to over there and try not to hurt him doing it.
Right.
And as crazy as it sounds, it's really basic.
That is very basic. I've never actually heard it put that way, but I like that.
It's much more complex. I'm simplifying it, but I mean, I
it's
really
actually
could give you, if I told you, Marla, you need to come to my house right now and get me out of this chair and put me outside without hurting me. And I know that I'm not going to let you do that. That is a tough task. You're going to have to get resources. You're going to have to bring in other people. You're going to try using your powers of persuasion from your life experience to talk me out of this chair.
I could do it. I could
you probably could, but you only have so much time before the next important thing comes along.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And so it's interesting to look at it that way. And I tell people, like, I'm glad. I want improvement. I think that during my time at Metro fortunately is a great police department. They really are. They still have
a great man. Joe Lombardo is a great man.
He is, and he's a good sheriff, and he sees the big picture, and that's important. But he's a man too. And the organization itself, though, the years I worked there, has been progressive. They've attempted to be better all the time. They've taken the history, especially the bad history, the mistakes, and said, what are we doing wrong? How can we do this better? And they
listen.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to move us
forward. Are we cooking yet?
Let's move us forward, because though I wanted to go back through your history and certainly the force and inspire young people that are thinking about going into the force, and they just need to hear somebody say it's a great time to go in. I want to welcome Christine Jolly, but we have a lot of moms that have signed on today to listen to you and I talk. And you are a poet. And as a police officer, you would go down and stand on the corners and you would do your poetry on the corners. You wrote beautiful stuff. Just tell us how that evolved for you.
Well, I always wrote poetry since I was a kid. Since I was probably 6, I can remember writing poetry. So I've been writing it my whole life.
Rhyming poetry?
I write rhyming, all kinds of poetry. I've written in several styles, and I can write in pretty much any style that I want to, but I have my own beat style that I write in, but I can write. What's that?
At 6, what were you writing?
I was just writing poetry. I just little rhymes, more of a sonnet style, stuff I was learning. I was learning poems, and I was writing my own poems based on the poems that I'd heard. I was, Dr. Seuss was a big influence when I was that little. Shel Silverstein. I had Mrs. Voisin, my first grade teacher, was a huge reader, and she really got me interested in reading and writing. And so I really had a great base for writing my whole life. But when I got to be about 18 or 19, I was in college and I was writing. I kind of got some of my stuff was heavily criticized at that point. I was young and I thought, oh, I'm not good at this. So I just kind of put it aside for a while.
Oh.
And because I took somebody, and it was actually one person's word that I took, and I just put it aside. It was like I let this person influence my ability to move forward on that. Because, artists were sensitive types, right? We got sometimes we give people far too much credit.
I recently heard a story about a writer who, when she was in junior college, she had a professor, she took a writing course, and she showed this short story to a professor. And the professor turned to her and said, "Do me a favor. Don't ever try to write again."
I mean, that's just terrible.
What he said to her. And she didn't pick up a pen for 25 years. And 25 years later, she had a breakdown, and she realized that for 25 years, she had suppressed her soul's journey of writing. And this woman has now gone on to write 10 best-selling novels, but for 25 years, she did not touch a pen.
And I understand, it's because we're fragile sometimes, especially when it comes to stuff that involves other people. When we're creating art, we create it for ourselves, but we're also going to take the risk of putting it in front of the world. And we trust people along the way, and we should trust people, but we have to be careful when it comes to our art, because we don't know what other people's agendas are and what their own heart is and what their own mind is. We can't just let somebody tell us that we can't do something one time and let it go. But kids do that. Young people do that. They hear a negative thing and they just dump it. And my hope is, if I can tell, is never give up what your heart tells you is good for you.
Well, I think what happens, and certainly it was for me with cooking, is that a really harsh criticism from someone with a big bark causes you to believe that. And
Right.
then you don't walk back into the kitchen for 40 years. And then suddenly there you are. And you wonder how much of your life really, I mean, it pains me to think how much of my life I lost not cooking by doing so many other things that I did love. I have nothing to be sorry for. I've had a wonderful life. But this cooking thing for me is like poetry for you, is that I really knew that if I didn't get in the kitchen, I would die. I would die not being able to cook. But it took me until I was in my 60s to literally be able to know that.
Well, here you are, and I'm glad that you
I
are.
am.
I'm glad that you're finding your heart. I have a friend who's a therapist who said to me once that the farther you move from your true soul, the harder your life gets. And it's the truth.
For sure.
Absolutely the truth.
For sure.
And the closer you move to your true soul, the easier your life gets. It's completely true. And I can tell you that for myself.
And this is my mantra right now. I just want to share it with you since we're having this deep philosophical, spiritual conversation, which I rarely get to have, at least with my group here, with my gatherers who have all joined us here today.
They want to know how to make scallops, and I'm screwing around with all this BS, right?
We're not making scallops today, but I will tell you that I have learned these words, is that when you are close to your soul's journey and when you are doing what your soul has begged you to do, that you really trust with certainty that the journey you're on is right. And you have trust and certainty beyond logic.
That's
that
true.
You are doing what you are supposed to do. Trust and certainty beyond logic helps you move forward. When you have lack and fear and doubt, you are crushing your soul, and you have to just shift. And it's a mind thing. It's a mind game. You got to take the ego out of the way and be there, with trust and certainty beyond logic. With that, I want to welcome Scott Steinhoff, who is here. So happy to have him. So let's read some poetry.
All right. Well, I will read I wrote a poem this morning. So this is brand new. I wrote this for Mother's Day. I looked through my mother's poem to see if I'd written some other Mother's Day poems. And I have, but they're not. I think this one is appropriate. And I like this piece, and I'll share it with you right now.
And to your mother, or is it just a general Mother's
Day? This is for all our moms. So this is for all moms. And I could share 3 pieces with you today. One of them is this one. One of them is about faith, and the other one is about my mother. The one about my mother is a little bit harsh. I may not share it. We'll see.
Oh, no, now you have to. What are you kidding?
It's painful. It's painful because it's raw from the heart about her cancer.
Okay.
And it is rough, but I will share it if you'd like.
Okay. And Cynthia Berman says she loves this conversation, and Glinda House says she does as well. Go for it, Harry.
Well, I'm glad. So no place like mom. Okay. Carved from the stone of togetherness, we grow in the womb of our mother. Locked in a tiny apartment, everything we need, air, food, water, and indeed, light. Light coming from the soul of the mother. The beating rhythm, talking out our own fluttering hearts, we dream in color and noise. Turning and floating in a cascade of crashing waves and singing birds, hands flailing for fingers we cannot grasp, yet outstretched they remain, brushing the soft walls of our vibrant cocoon. When the time is right, we travel here. Arriving in a cacophonous moment, fire and music and the great first intake of outside air, we see, eyes looking everywhere and nowhere, we gaze deeply, totally, effortlessly into the eyes of our bearer, and we eat. Drinking life from the same providing fountain. The bond was created in some cosmic quasar, the spark of life not being blown into fire until that first suckle. Now the soul stretches, reaches, grows, and begins to manifest. The outer light becomes the inner light, the real time of our lives start. Mom is still there in a proper world, there to bandage the wounds the hard world brings, gauze and tape for the cuts and bruises, hugs and kisses for the blow to our morale. Moms as life bearers deserve so much. If they nurture, it is complete. No room for hate or distance. This love is unconditional. We walk with the tether to the kindness of our mothers, attaching us to all that is good in the world, or we walk in pain with no kindness at all. Mothers, so important for our balance, soothing the violent warrior, capturing the artistic heart, listening to the sufferings of the young and offering strength. Moms give us what we need to heal if we let them. So I call out. Some random poetry on a greeting card is nice, but these words need to have gravity, weight, real meaning in order to reflect the sacred truth of motherhood, to define it in the lasting realm of glory, to bask in the warm skin and sweet breath of mom, to know that as long as she is there in the world, there is a place you can return to again and again. Today, I think of mom and mothers and the chain of life, light and silver connecting us through the generations, islands of respite our mothers are, dotting our life with moments to behold, healing our broken hearts and mending our broken bones with a mother's shining love. There is no place like mom.
That's beautiful. You guys all raise your hands there or give us clapping hands in the chat. That was beautiful, Harry.
Thanks. Yeah, I like it. My wife liked it. I always run it through the muse, Leilani. You know, Leilani knows my stuff.
Yeah,
So
that's great.
that I wrote this morning, and that's for all you moms.
Oh, Cynthia Berman says she's crying. It was so beautiful. Big thumbs up coming really fast. Lots of hearts popping up everywhere. Lots of good stuff there, Harry.
Well, good. I'm glad. I hope everybody enjoyed that. I mean, we could just stick with that. We don't have to. I can do no more poetry.
What else?
We could talk about poetry. You were asking me how I got started.
Oh, my mother just made lots of hearts down there, and
Is that Adrian?
Yeah, yeah.
For Adrian.
Yeah. So, what else did you bring for us?
Well, I brought this poem about faith. It's I'm really excited about this piece. I wrote this last week, middle of the night, probably about 2, 3 in the morning. I've really been thinking about faith a lot, from a sense of, I asked a lot of people to pray for my mom. She's sick with cancer, and I asked for people to pray for her. And I asked them specifically, I didn't care. I put a note. I don't care if you're atheist or agnostic, or you're really extremely religious, or you don't believe in religion, or you don't know what you are. I don't care. Just please give me positive energy for my mom. And when I put that out there, over 500 people responded with words of encouragement for my mother. And I sat and read to her these words of encouragement. And I know that it was helpful. She's turned a corner, in my opinion. She's doing very well now. I'm knocking on wood that she's found her way out of the darkness of chemo and radiation and the devastation of the cancer that she has. So I'm hopeful that it's out of her now. She seems to be moving the right direction, you know, and I'm proud and happy for her. But I really am thankful to all the people that sent their positive waves. So that got me thinking about faith a lot.
And so just so that people who are, you know, I'm asking questions that I know our audience wants to know, but they're probably thinking, what kind of cancer does mom have? Mom
has small cell carcinoma of the lung. It has metastasized locally. So that's a bad situation. And she defeated it once, and it was 6 weeks before it came back. This is the second time now, and she's had to have some pretty significant radiation and some very strong chemo, and she's made it through that now. So now we're just waiting. We won't know if they were able to get rid of all that cancer. We won't know for a few more weeks. I'm hopeful that they did, but in the meantime, her spirits are so much better. She's getting healthy.
And her energy is up.
And she is, and she's got her feistiness. You know, that's what keeps her going. My mom, if you know her, she's a very feisty, strong lady. She's always, since she's burned bras in the 60s forward, she's always stood on her own 2 feet. She's gotten rid of men that were no good for her. She's been on her own for umpteen years. It's hard for her to step out of the role of being in control. I know that. She's she does what she wants, when she wants, how she wants. And to have that taken away has been difficult for her. I know it is.
I don't see your mom as a burn brine woman. She seemed very conservative to me. No, am I wrong?
You're wrong. Yeah, she keeps that. She's good at playing politics though. She can run with anybody, and hang in. But
Yeah.
back in the 60s, she did several protests, and she
Oh
believed
my
doing
God,
the
I
right thing,
can't
and she
imagine.
believes in the empowerment of women, you know, and she's passed
Yeah.
that along to me and her grandsons and her granddaughters and everybody has this strong belief in themselves and their ability to just be themselves. And I think that came from her. She's a very independent person, you know, and I love seeing her with strength, because seeing her without strength broke my heart every time I saw it. It's very hard to watch. And for anybody that's taking care of someone out there, you know, a Mishu Barak for you, a prayer for you, my love for you, my support for you. People do not realize the difficulty of taking care of someone who's sick until they've done it. It's like everything else in life. Until you experience it, you don't know what it does. And I'm thankful for my sister Lisa, who's been there, because I know that there's families who are they have so much inner turmoil that when they have a sick family member, that just adds another level of pain to the already difficult time. I'm fortunate I don't have that problem.
Good. So a poem about faith. Go for it.
You ready for that? I had it written. I got to pull it up on the screen here. So give me just a second.
And we're all sending everybody give a little heart who's watching for Jackie Feigold.
Yes, Jackie Dvorak. She's going by Dvorak. It's fine. Faithless be not. Did you forsake me when my footsteps no longer echoed here? The darkness closing in, liquid smoke, opaque, endless, terrifying. Nothing, not even light, escapes a black hole. Where was your face when you took everyone I loved, pitching them on crashing seas, daring us to have faith in spite of hypocrisy, pouring out our blood on silky sand? Was belief my only way out, throwing the apple away and breaking back into the garden, begging forgiveness, howling for mercy, writhing on a stone carpet, weeping for your grace? Such a price for majestic pardon, paid by submitting to that which I cannot understand? Or defiant shall I remain, standing on the wicked edge, bleeding feet spread and sure, eyes asquint from the blazing sunset, daring myself? The soul is beyond my feeble mind, and so any interpretation forged by man is inadmissible in the cosmic court. Fairy tales and fury fails to be enough, but what I have gathered is real. Here is the truth of love. The truth of love is to give it away. And the truth of love lay wrapped in abandonment, crying and laughing in the sweet air. And I hope I can find you again.
Oh, did you lose me for a minute?
I lost you for a second. But that's the poem. There's the faith poem.
Beautiful. Let's give some hands up, everybody. Frank has just joined us. Hello, Frank.
Hi, Frank.
Let's give some thumbs up, some hearts. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
And would you like to read, do you have an award-winning poem that you've recently from the past, or something that you wanted to bring up? Or would you like lots of thumbs up and hearts there, Harry? Do you want to read the poem about your mom's cancer?
It's a strong piece. If you're ready for it.
Well, you know,
I can. I haven't performed this piece. It was a cathartic piece that I wrote, but you know what? Let me pull it up here and see.
You know, Harry, and I know it's a really personal piece, but in our audience, we have no idea who is watching and who may be struggling and or suffering with those same emotions. I mean, that's what poems are. They're your emotions pen to paper that help us reveal our own emotions when reading it. So, and Susan Mendorf is here. Hey, Susan. This is Harry Feigold. Harry.
Okay. Well, I will.
25-year captain from Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, who has been a poet since the age of 6. He wrote poetry as an officer and did many poetry readings in uniform.
Oh yeah.
And is about to read a poem for all of us about his mom's cancer.
Okay. Mom in the news. Sitting in the cancer doc's office, mom next to me, tiny, yet not frail. She looks at me out the side of her eyes. These eyes have seen some shit, been around since the Second World War, Been through life and death, traveling like a mad horse on an out-of-control carousel, married, divorced twice, kids, grandkids, great-grandkids, nieces and nephews, and all that hippity-dippity. A younger brother who has never held a candle flame to her, and friends going back forever. My mom. Survived the big, fat, ugly cunt of cancer twice. Third time's a charm. Bad things come in threes. Third strike, you're out. My mom is a bit of a witch. She can tell the future, and in it for all of us comes death in a pale Corvette, handing out the end in all its myriad ways. When we draw our last, when violence takes us, or we simply drown in the lake, the last thing we usually ask for is mom. I look at her and I can't imagine the world without her life force in it. She is so difficult and superstitious and neurotic and so fucking cool. So I guess I can pray for her to either be well or to die with dignity. Mostly, though, I just want my mom. And we don't typically get to keep them forever. So I brace myself for the gut punch. See it coming down the long hallway of life. A metal fist with spikes and real weight that I know will smash my body and my mind into a new and unknown land. I really want to wait as long as possible because life is worth living. And I want my mom. I want my mom to be. I just want her to be okay.
That's beautiful.
It's rough, I understand, but that's raw poetry right there.
Yeah,
Unfiltered.
Well, there was a few things that I was not expecting, but I think we all got through it.
Hey, I think you did.
We're all adults here. Yeah.
It's a rough piece. It hasn't been polished, like I said, and I would probably change some of it. I was really upset when I wrote it. And sometimes I like to write like that. But to be honest with you, that's the truth of what I was feeling in that moment. And you're not going to get it any rawer than that. And yes, the language is strong, but so are my feelings about it. So there you go. We cannot punch down our feelings by using lesser words that don't describe our anger or absolute just dismay that this is happening. And I know this is life. I understand the full circle. I get it. But when it's happening to someone that you love and you see them suffer, it's never an easy thing.
And I will tell you this, no matter how old or how sick they are, when they die, it's always too soon, no matter how old. And I will tell you, my grandfather, I'll never forget this. My grandfather's mother, who was my great grandmother, my Bubby, died when she was 95 years old, maybe 98. We were never sure because, when they came from the old country, they didn't come with birth certificates. So they lost track of the years. And Shelley Kramer, Barbara's oldest daughter, my dad's sister's oldest daughter, is here and she's sending hearts. So I just wanted to tell you that.
Thank you. I'm taking all your hearts. I promise. I'm putting them right here where they belong. So thanks.
I just want to finish telling you this little piece. So when my Bubby died at 98, 95, 96, 97, 98, who knows for sure, my grandfather was like 76, 77 years old, and he cried like a baby. And I remember at the age of 28 thinking to myself, why do you cry at 78 years old for your mother? Like, I couldn't conceive that if he was 78 and she was 98.
Didn't they have enough life? Wasn't that enough life? It's never enough.
What were you expecting? Like, you're an old man now. Why would you cry? And I realized, of course, as my own life began to unfold, that with the loss of my grandmother, like there was not a day. She was 77. She wasn't 98. She was 77. I will tell you, when she got sick, when death came, it was too soon. And I remember saying to my mother-in-law, or maybe she said to me, I said, I just don't know why we couldn't have one more day. I just don't know why we couldn't have had one more day. And my mother-in-law, in her wisdom, turned to me and said, don't you know why God doesn't give you one more day with them? And I said, no, why? And she said, because if he did, you would only ask for another. And I thought that was so moving, because if we ask and we were given, we would then only ask for another and another and another. It's just how it's written, right?
It is. And when we lose someone we love, we lose all their history. We only have what we carry. We only have the history that we carry now. They're not the source now. We have to carry that history. That's why it's important to talk to the people you love, learn their stories, record them if you want, write them down, make poetry about them. But I love hearing my mom's stories because I know she is the sole proprietor of those stories.
Yes,
and only by
the sole proprietor, because even if I asked my dad, he couldn't give us the answer, but she is the sole proprietor of how you and I are cousins. So I think we should get that story.
I think we need to find out,
right?
right?
We need to get that story down. All right, buddy?
Yeah.
Okay, Harry, anything that you would like to say or do, sing or speak to take us out?
Yes, actually. If you have a chance, if you want poetry written for you by me, I do that. I do commissioned work. If you go to harryfeigoldpresents.com, you can order poetry up to and including performance, weddings, whatever you want. I do commission work, and I have quite a curriculum on there. You can read some of my history of the things that I've accomplished. I don't like to brag about my award-winning poetry, as you called it, but I've had some, and I have a couple of books that are published and some other things. But the main thing is I enjoy being able to touch people's lives with poetry. It's something that can be done, and it can be done really beautifully. So I leave you with this.
So I just put it in the chat for everybody, harryfeigoldpresents.com.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Marla. But if I leave you with anything, it's this. I spent 25 years as a police officer. I spent 50 plus years on this planet as a human being. I've done a lot of things, seen a lot of things. I've raised a couple of boys. I've got plenty of nieces. I've got a mom I take care of. I got a wife who I love and adore. I am a very, very happy man, and I have a very beautiful life. But I have learned at this point that my most powerful asset is giving it away. I'm telling you, I said it in that poem, giving away love is the most powerful thing you can do, as often and as greatly as you can. And it isn't easy. It's like, you don't think of it. And it's like, well, try it. Just keep doing it. When you run across a guy, the salesman that's bothering you as you walk through the mall, smile at them and say, hey, how you doing today? And just keep walking instead of ignoring their existence. When a homeless person comes up to you and says something to you, respond to them. Be careful, though. I don't want you getting stabbed by some crazy person that comes up to you, but they're people, they're human. And the more love you give to the world, the more you get back. And I'm not, I'm a tough guy. I can handle the tough part of life. I can handle the violence and the pain that's there. It's going to continue. It's life. But we need to find the joy inside of that. And we need to help each other. We do not do this alone. We do this together. Yes. And the more we love each other, I guarantee you, the better we're going to do it. It's like family. It's real. If you treat people, what would you do if it was a family member? How would you treat this person if they were your cousin or your brother or your sister or your dad or your uncle or your child? And if you treat people that way, like family, and you give them the love for free and don't worry about whether you get anything back, you will get it back 10 times. I guarantee it. So that's my message I leave with you today.
And here's my saying, my very favorite saying. I have three, but here's my first saying. Spread love like butter is actually my third. But here's this saying, which is, in life, you only get to keep what you give away.
Well said, Marla. And we are on the same page as usual. We've been friends a long time. I know you sense and feel the world as I do in your own way, and I do my own way, but we both care about this world. And I think that we can, that most people do, and we're going to be okay. And those young people out there, you change the system, make it work. It's an important system. And
here's two comments that I want you to hear. Is Susan Mendorf said, love is on loan from God, not meant for us to keep, but to share. And Shelley Kramer, our cousin, said, I think Uncle Sam did a tape on the history of our family. So maybe you want to ask about that.
Yeah, that tape was done, and the rabbi who did it was Rabbi Felipe from Temple Shalom.
Yeah,
he cannot find them.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So those tapes are somewhere. I hope that they turn up someday. But if they don't, yeah, that's it. I've given Felipe Goodman enough of a hard time. I'm not going to give him a hard time anymore.
Well, now when I'm on him too. Okay.
Yeah, you get on him too. I don't know what happened to it. He doesn't. I know he gets, as soon as he sees me coming, he's like, uh-oh. He's going to bug me again.
All right.
I don't mean to bug him. It's just I want to hear him.
On the count of three, you want to say spread love like butter with me?
Yep.
Everybody does. So I say 1, 2, 3, go out and
spread love like butter.
There we go.
Spread love like butter. Okay, we did it, right?
We did it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Join us tomorrow for our Mother's Day cocktail. And I'll post that recipe so we can all make it together. Bye, Harry. Thank you.
Bye,
Thank
and
you,
thank you.
everybody.